Hello and welcome to the Athletics Office Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Weaver, with my co-host, Coach RC. And today we're joined by Bret Schwartz from Prep Baseball Report, Oklahoma. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so tell our listeners kind of who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Yeah, so I work for Prep Baseball. Prep Baseball Report, I think, is probably how it's been known in the past. But I'm the scouting director here in Oklahoma. So my job is ultimately to know the state and to get out. Obviously, we put on some events as well, but to scout, promote amateur baseball. So then if 4-year schools, 2-year schools call me, like I'm able to share any and all information that I have, but then also provide athletes with our platform so they can be seen. And ultimately, like I got out of school and I taught and I coached. And I think part of what I loved about coaching was trying to help kids get from where they are to where they go. And if you think back to the history of like the coach, the stage coach was taking someone from where they are to where they ultimately want to be. And so that was kind of what drove me as a youth, but then coaching college baseball and then this job now, like it's changed a little bit, but ultimately like that purpose is still there where I'm just trying to help baseball players kind of get from where they are to where they want to get to.
Yeah. So, yeah, awesome.
Well, take us around, Bret. I know you've been involved in baseball for a while. You've coached a little bit. So take us around, like where you've been at and things like that.
Yeah. So I played at Central Missouri. So in Warrensburg, same league here in the MIAA that UCO's in.
Yeah.
And historically, like great program. I was really fortunate to play on some outstanding teams there. Went to the World Series a couple times. And when I graduated, I went back to my alma mater. So went back to I'm from Kansas City and taught and coached for 5 years. And at that point, we didn't have kids and had the opportunity to get into college baseball. And so we kind of figured if it's ever going to happen, if ever going to maybe scratch this itch of wondering what if, like this is the time to do it. So prayed about it and ultimately got into college baseball. And then over that 6-year time, we had 2 boys. And so priorities changed a little bit. Obviously, like I loved being home. I hated being away from my wife, my wife. But when you're leaving 2 little boys and you come back and they're learning new words and all kinds of different things, it was different. So then I had the opportunity to still stay within the game, but to do it a little bit differently and be home a lot more often and things like that. So it's what kind of brought us here.
And how long have you been doing that for?
So I've been with Prep Baseball for about 1.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you guys put on events, roughly how many kids are involved in those events?
Yeah, so we kind of classify them in different ways. So like the first event that most guys come to is called an ID. And so we'll do them in the preseason, in the summer, and then in the fall. And it's anywhere from, like here in OKC, they're a little bit bigger. So I think the one that we had this preseason was 50, 55 guys. But then like it could be like 20 guys. So it just kind of depends. But it's kind of the first opportunity, I think, anytime that somebody's performing in front of a camera or with technology, or they're the only one hitting and everybody's watching them, there's some anxiety and things like that. So kind of I do my best to kind of slow it down, simplify things, give them just like some really simple cues like, hey, let's just drive the ball back at the yellow screen, things like that. Because, I mean, part of it is the YouTube era, today's day and age, like they're so driven on what was that exit velo number, what is this, that, or the other, that kind of got them to talking back to the purpose and what things, I mean, it's still baseball. It's still just a simple game. So, so we'll have those ID events and then we get into like some invite only events. So like our biggest one of the year we had on Super Bowl Sunday at Oral Roberts, and that was 155 guys. Oh, wow. So there's a lot that goes into it, just depending on the time of year, because you can't necessarily plan to be outside in the preseason, and then the weather can change on a dime. Trying to plan accordingly with that, and then hopefully technology's cooperating for you and sorts of things like that.
Roughly how many staff members does it take to kind of put on one of those events?
Yeah, I think I'm super blessed. So like Andy Urban, who's my boss now, so he was down here originally, and then Scott Hood was here most recently. He's on staff at Oral Roberts now. But those guys did an unbelievable job of kind of facilitating and then developing staff to where I kind of came in and I felt like guys were teaching me at times. This is not to step on your toes. This is what we've done in the past. And so I was really fortunate. So like we have a few staff members. We have an intern that goes to OU that just crushes it all the time. So I'm really fortunate. There's a handful of guys that help all the time, and then just depending on the size of the event, kind of go from there as far as how many reinforcements we need to call in and things like that.
And these events are mainly for high school age
Correct.
kids?
Yeah. So, really the goal is kind of the recruiting that kind of comes from it. So, trying to, I think just in baseball, there's so many things that you're able to put a number to. So having those tools, whether it be like a 60, strength with the exit velo, athleticism with the vertical jump, or just getting guys on the mound and using TrackMan to read what those metrics look like, is great. I think it also kind of helps me selfishly. It helps me put a name to the face, because then I think the most important thing is what they do on the field. And so all spring, and then a good amount in the summer, chasing guys around, and hey, this is what they did at an event, and it was 87, 88 in an event, but it was 84, 85 on the mound in the game. So like there's somewhere we need to grow in some way. Or it just might be, hey, this guy's like, the exit velos aren't going to jump out at you. He's not like an elite runner, but man, I've seen him be a really good base runner. Like he's awesome with ball and dirt reads. He's an excellent defender, busts his tail around. He's an in-game performer. Like he's one of those guys. So it's like makes it easier for me to kind of put my name to him and go to bat for him. And whenever I talk to those schools at the next level. So then from there, do you go to, other events if there's baseball tournaments going on and kind of see them in that area? Or you do, you cover more travel baseball? So my goal, so there's a couple guys that also get out a little bit in the spring, but my goal in the spring is to see at least 4 to 5 games a week. So we see a ton of games, and then from that our company will put on tournaments. Kansas City's probably the most successful as far as being here closer within the region. Dallas, we're about to open up a complex in Dallas, so that one will be obviously draw some Oklahoma teams as well. So Oklahoma's my focus. So it's if there's a big tournament and there's Oklahoma summer teams that are going up there to compete, then I just kind of follow them around. And I try to be their eyes and ears, and then again, as I'm watching that, there's usually going to be schools they're watching as well, and I can just kind of advocate for those guys. Like, hey, this guy, like you're watching him be resilient today. Well, shoot, I saw him do that 4 or 5 times this spring as well, and competed really well. So, so just again, trying to help kids ultimately.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Want to take a quick time out here to ask you to please leave a comment down below with any episode ideas or any feedback on any of our episodes. And then also you can email us at theathleticoffice@gmail.com. Let's get back to it.
All right, so what does it look like when youth sports, in this case baseball, are done right, healthy perspective for each role, like parents and coaches and players and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's a partnership. So the kid being at the focus, at the center, and I think like any good team, like you always hear, like people need to understand their roles. And I think like any good partnership, any good team, that's going to probably be the secret sauce at practice, in game, like allowing coaches to coach, right? Let away in the car, parents patting them on the back and rah-rahing in a sense of being the biggest cheerleader and telling them they did a great job. I also think like you can really tell when kids kind of share that joy with their parents. So it might be in baseball, it's like playing catch at home, and understanding kind of what that looks like, but also framing like what does success look like? Like, hey, were you an awesome teammate today? Did you bust your tail on and off the field? Were we resilient in a little bit of adversity? Because baseball's tough. Like it's a skill-based game, and I think that's also what's so fun with it is like you're gonna see growth. Like the more you do it, like you're going to improve. So I think understanding kind of like the perspective sense of like this is difficult, but then also like understanding your role to ultimately like help the kid, like help your child. I think I would hope, I would think 99% of the time when there's an issue, it's maybe stems from, man, that parent just like loves their kids so much that they want what's best for them.
Yeah.
So in this way, maybe it's just taking a step back, a breather, and understanding kind of what that role looks like to help their child.
Yeah.
I think from a youth coach perspective, like you don't have enough somewhat youth coaches like that are saying, especially on the baseball side,
Sure.
of like, hey, this parent is like there for their kid. It's a healthy thing for them to be excited for their kid. Kind of let them do that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of youth baseball coaches seem to think like, oh, they're overstepping.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
Instead of just letting them, parent and be like excited.
Yeah.
Then you do sometimes get the overzealous parent that's like, why are you bunting them?
Yeah.
Why are you bunting them?
Yeah.
Don't make them bunt right now.
Yeah.
I think there's a good dynamic there in understanding that.
Well, it's so good for me to hear it because we coach, right? And we can have a critical eye. So I think about my own kids when we're coaching them in youth, and it's like, of course, in a game, like I'm going to tell them, hey, do this, whatever. But that time after the game is so important that, there may be a time where I'm frustrated as a coach and you're leaving, but it's like, I've got to remember that I need to build confidence. I need to build, self-esteem and those type of things in this, not tell them the 8 million different things that they did wrong at the age of 10, so.
And see, I do a lot better with that in basketball, being my assistant basketball coach role for a 5th grade team. I do a lot better job with that in basketball than I did in softball with my daughter. We would get in the car and I coached her team and I'd be like, hey, you got to get your butt on and off the field. Like, why are you jogging? And hey, you didn't get the bunt down. What are we, we practice this stuff all the time. And she's like, just looking at me with wide eyes. I'm like, okay, I need to tone it back a little bit, So, it's different perspectives.
So you gave some advice, just to parents in general. What would you say for those parents who they have a kid who's really good, and they're getting attention, or maybe they're one of the ones that does the most on their team? What advice would you give those type of parents on how to navigate that when they have like one of the better players on the team?
I think it's kind of like what you're trying to build up a leader in a lot of ways. And so I think with that, it's not just about, hey, what did you do individually, but like, how can you help your teammates? Like, how can you bring guys with you, bring girls with you, to where as like boats rise with the tide is the old saying. So as the team goes, like the boats are going to go with it. And so I think like if you're able to, we're talking youth, so it's difficult at times for them to understand, but it might just be like, hey, how good of a teammate were you today, right? Or hey, this is what you saw from the pitcher when you get back to the dugout. If you can teach kids at a young age to communicate something like that, like, hey, like he was coming in on me, or really simple things, but it's like, hey, you were awesome today. Like, effort was awesome, but how can we help your teammates? Like, how can we get better in some of those ways? I think would be, obviously beneficial in the short term, but I think it would be really interesting to see. If someone became comfortable with communicating those things with teammates at a young age, and let the mirror neurons on that team start firing, and they're going to start sharing information, be pretty fun. Like that would be a really cool community, I think, to see develop.
Yeah. I think I think this is really cool, to see kids that are multi-sport athletes, particularly in youth, because maybe they're a stud in baseball.
Sure. Yeah.
And then maybe they're okay in basketball. There's a different role there. And so then it kind of puts them in this, well, I need to value my teammates in baseball, even though I'm doing a lot of the production, right? And they wouldn't say it in these terms, but in basketball, I want to be valued by, the guy that maybe scoring 20 points, maybe I'm a little bit different. And it just puts them in these different roles. They have these different experiences that they can learn from. Now, there's some kids that maybe they're just best at everything, right? They're big or they're fast. They've grown, more than other kids or things like that. But baseball is like you said, such a skill sport. That it's not always the case. In basketball, if you're taller, kind of faster, sometimes you're going to be one of the better ones and everything. Yeah. But there's a lot of opportunity to be able to learn that.
Baseball is interesting too because it is individual. Like it's an individual team sport. Like you're doing everything on your own. Like nobody else is in the box with you. Nobody else is fielding a ground ball with you. If you make an error, like your teammate hopefully he's going to back you up, similar to like in basketball, like you get beat, like hopefully there's some sort of rotation there.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what can be really fun with baseball is it is individual, but like you are doing it for that guy next to you. You're doing it for the dugout. So it is cool whenever that maybe starts to click a little bit with younger guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move to coaching side of it. What advice would you give coaches who are coaching youth baseball as far as like, hey, maybe you can even dive into like practice structure a little bit, or how to navigate, maybe moving from like the travel baseball or rec baseball to travel baseball and things like that.
I think, and this is obviously going to be like kind of a gross generalization just because I'm sure there's never enough help and things like that. But I think static is obviously the enemy. So anytime that they can be active and moving around and doing different things like that, I think you're going to have a lot more success. Like my son is a kindergartner here at OCS and came with me to watch a game on President's Day because there was no school. And he was awesome for about 95% of it. But it was like eventually the coolness of the radar gun and the coolness of the stopwatch had worn off, and he was ready he wanted to get out there, And I think at practice, like, man, there's kids that love baseball and they're going to listen and to be attentive, but at some point, like that's going to run out and they're going to want to run around. So I think just being super like station based, but then also just in the things that are going on in those stations. Like I think as a youth coach, like you got to be a little bit more cognizant of like you're trying to build an engine. Like you're not trying to build a steering wheel. Like you're trying to like you want them to swing hard. You want them to throw the ball far, throw balls at targets. Like have like challenges and games and different things. Because I also think like the more you do that, like they're gonna see growth. Like they're gonna see that from 1 week to the next, and that's ultimately I think like that competition within the game like by themselves is going to foster some development and things. So I think that is probably the most important thing. It's just like how active can we be? Like can we do things like that? But then I think it's also like don't overcoach. I've heard this said before where it's like you want to give them guardrails to keep them on the road, but you don't want to like drive for them. So it's like try and keep them in the right direction, but like they're going to swing and miss a little bit. Like they're not gonna like right now. Like when Will and I play catch or something, like it's a celebration if he catches it. You know, it's awesome. So I think just understanding kind of that growth is really fun, and it's like he's figuring it out. And it's I'm sure I still say way too much, but it is really fun to try to take a step back and listen and watch.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Do you see development at the early ages fleeing, or is it getting better right now?
I mean, it seems like it's getting better. Like, I just think
there's more guys throwing hard now.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the game just continues to change. Like, 10, 15 years ago, like you wouldn't have thought that there was going to be a clock ever in a baseball stadium, counting down.
I'm grateful for the clock. Like, last night we were at a scrimmage and the umpire was like, hey, pace of play. And there's another umpire out in the field with a stopwatch. And I'm like, But go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I just think the game continues to change. I think the tools of like as guys develop, like that continues to change as well. I mean, technology continues to change. So like anything that can be used, it can all be used. Right. And so it's like using it for good and still keeping like the game simple and things like that, I think are, especially at a young age, like let them fly around, have fun with their buddies.
Right.
And they're going to probably love it. They're going to want to be invested in a lot more.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely seems like, I mean, I just don't remember a lot of like personal training or, pitching coaches, shooting coaches, all that stuff when we were growing up, when I was growing up. Yeah. And now it's like a lot of our kids that are here at OCS, I mean, once they, find the sports they're really interested in, they want it, more. Yeah. And so they're getting a lot of that. So I'd imagine that they're developing quicker and better and things like that because of that. So
yeah, the agility coach used to be playing basketball, like getting down in the stands and playing defense. Like that's how you improved your feet on the infield and things like that.
So, talking about your kids, so you've got a kindergartner, kind of starting that youth baseball and going to be getting over the next few years. And so what advice would you give kids that are involved in it? And really, how do you nurture this love of the game, love of sport, and then also kind of guard against, I don't know if it's too far to say making it an idol or being a professional in third grade, you know, like how do you balance that with a kid?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough, obviously, and I think it's different for every kid.
Yeah.
But I think even with that being said, like typically the reason that they are there is because there is a joy, like there's a genuine joy in playing. I think, like my wife played soccer, so I guess that maybe that's why he will enjoy soccer. It's not coming from me necessarily, but anyway, that's what he does at recess every day. Like he plays soccer every day, and there's no parents there. Well, I would assume watching and paying attention, but he gets home from school and it's like, hey, tell me about your day. Like, what was your favorite thing about the day? And I'd say 9 times out of 10, it has something to do with playing soccer at recess with his buddies. I scored 100 goals today, which it's got to be a record.
That's right.
But just that simple joy of like he's just flying around. I guarantee you that entire group of kids is better today than they were in mid-September. Yeah. Because just they do it every day. Like they're having fun, and they're fostering like genuine joy and playing with their friends. And so I think like for kids, like that's ultimately what needs to be at the core. Like that needs to be the foundation of like baseball's a tough game, like we've mentioned. And so there's going to be like people refer to it as a game of failure. It's which is fine. Like, but it's also like this game of great opportunity where like you can impact a game in so many different ways that don't show up necessarily in a box score. So I think like as they grow up, they're going to be more drawn to, man, I was 1 for 4 today. And like, I've been told traditionally, like that's not very good and whatever else. But if there's that constant joy and that foundation of like, man, I'm playing with my buddies, like I'm flying around having a good time, like that's going to continue.
Right. All right, we're going to pivot a little bit. We talked about an event, a PBR event. Yeah. So take us through what putting a PBR event is like and the purpose of your event.
Yeah. So I think the biggest purpose is obviously to promote amateur sports and to be completely unbiased. Yeah. So easiest way to be unbiased is to measure the things that are important within that baseball world. So I'm really fortunate, like the technology that we have access to. So like we have the Vol lasers, which we run 60s with, but if you tune into MLB Network when the combine, like Eli Willits and Holiday are going through last year, like that's the lasers they were using. We have TrackMan, which can measure just about anything you could ever imagine, post impact offensively, but then also like as off the mound. So trying to put together like as much of an illustration of what that player looks like from a number standpoint. We have blast sensors that we use whenever we hit, pre-impact. Like we just have all these different pieces of technology. So I think for me, my biggest headache is always like, man, can this technology go off without a hitch? Because it is so valuable, you know, and it can be so important for these guys. And so within that event, it's like you're trying to be super efficient, but then you're also trying to make sure, you know, we get the right camera angles and we're presenting exactly who they are because, you know, like I mentioned, like there's some anxiety and some things that kind of come with that. So sometimes it might take a little bit longer to get through a round of BP because it's like we need to take a second, we need to take a breather. Yeah. I think one thing that is kind of nice is we as a company, like everything is very, very similar. So like we all hit off a hack within one of our events. So whether it's Florida, Texas, California, or here in Oklahoma, like we're all basically doing the same exact thing. And so I think you're just trying to present that opportunity for guys to be evaluated here just the way they would in Florida, just the way they would up north. So I think it is really cool. Obviously we at times will have like weather come up and things like that can make things more difficult. But I think I've been really, really lucky and blessed with the staff, but then also the people that we have partnerships with and work with us and things like that.
How do you measure heart and toughness? I want to know.
Yeah, no doubt.
I want to know how to do that.
That's a good question. Yeah.
It's like, do I have to go 15 games before I figure out how tough this kid is? Yeah. If I could just know game one, you know, if you let me know.
I also think like that's why it's important to have relationships with coaches. Yeah. I think that's why it's so fun to see guys like I don't think high school sports will never disappear, thankfully. And I think there's just something different about like, you know, being in second period with your buddy that you're gonna suit up with that night, but then having relationships with coaches where I can ask like, hey, what's this kid like? You know, like I love it on the field. Like they play with an edge, but like what are they like away from the yard? So I think those relationships then become that much more important.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, absolutely. So talk about the environment of travel baseball and kind of compare that to what you see in school baseball. So you see school games and the environment there versus kind of what you see in travel baseball and just the similarities and the differences in that.
Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, I think school baseball, I love going and watching guys like compete for a community. Like it's one of my favorite things. I mean, the small state tournament in the fall is one of my absolute favorite things to go watch because it is. I mean, they shut down school. Like it's a student section. They're going nuts and loving it. And so there is like that pride and it's like people are competing with their heart. Like it's pretty easy to see. Unfortunately, when a season ends, like you can see how much it meant to people and seniors to see just over that course of their career, like how important it was to compete there. I remember as a kid, like my dad taking me up and watching high school baseball games when I was a little kid and things like that. So I think that pride that comes with it is just so awesome and so exciting. And then summer baseball, when it's done correctly, like I think it just feeds into that development, right? I think in my head, like I kind of think of it as a little bit of pro ball at times because it can become a little bit individualized because as a coach, like you are trying to develop individuals. Oftentimes, like summer teams, facilities will have maybe a little bit better access or more access to technology that can aid with some of that development. So I do think like when it's done correctly, it's so awesome to watch like the partnership that and the communication that goes on between the two. Yeah. But to see the development in the summer and then they show back up in the fall and it's like, man, they've obviously been in the weight room maybe with the school and then the swing is cleaning up a little bit over the summer and they're playing a little bit faster, pace is a little bit better. Yeah. So you can kind of see both sides working really well. Yeah. Obviously, I think the most common is just pitchers getting on the mound and the need for communication between like a high school coach and then maybe where they're going to throw because maybe they're going to throw a bullpen elsewhere, maybe in the season, maybe not in the season. But I think, again, just like anything else, when the kid is at the center of that conversation and their well-being is the most important thing, I think it always kind of works out.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about what do you think schools did better to help with the sports environment?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma is actually like ahead of the curve. You know, we spent time in Kansas the last 6 years and then grew up in Missouri and like junior high baseball didn't necessarily exist. Yeah. And so I think the junior high and the youth stuff and getting kids excited about being part of a program, like not just kind of going out and playing in March, April, May, and then kind of moving on to the next thing, but being a part of something bigger than themselves, I think is pretty cool. Like I'm sure like when you hand out uniforms to junior high kids, especially their first time getting it, there's probably this pretty cool joy that you see within those guys.
We just don't have the digicamo uniforms.
There you go.
You know, have all the crazy.
We won't have the digicamo.
That's right. It's illegal, just in case you're wondering. You can't have that in middle school.
But I think that's kind of I think that's what's awesome is kind of just trying to like foster that from a young age and get them excited about, you know, being a part of something a lot bigger. And so I think that's maybe my favorite thing. I also think like last spring I was going to watch Okarche and Dale play, and before Okarche's varsity game, like the junior high game was going on, and this kid's throwing 82, 84, and I'm like, is this a junior high game? So I find somebody and track down exactly who it was and things like that. But anyway, it's like there were so many people there because they're coming for that varsity game, and it turned into, man, this is a really fun environment for this junior high game. So I thought they might play a basketball game before that, baseball game anyway. But
that's right. So if you were the National Youth Baseball King for a day, what would you change or adjust or emphasize or whatever? If whatever you said happened.
Yeah, it's tough because there's so many different and again, like it's really tough with youth, but I think the enemy is just being static, standing around watching. And so I think if you could create like a 3-on-3, 4-on-4 type of mentality, especially like when they're young, like Will is in kindergarten, to where they're playing like with a rag ball, and maybe they have a glove, maybe they don't, but you have a coach pitching and kids are hitting and they're running the bases, like they're learning how to be aggressive and run the bases, and you have kids chasing the baseball, and they're probably not going to catch very many of them, but there's going to be a celebration when they do, so I think just trying to develop athletes more than anything, rather than, hey, this is where a shortstop stands. This is where a second baseman stands. Because I think if you teach them to love it, they're going to want to learn that stuff. Like they're wanting to sit down and watch a baseball game, and they're going to learn like, hey, this is where a shortstop is. This is where a center fielder is. And then as they watch, like, hey, this is where Bobby Witt Jr. stands. This is where Pete Crow Armstrong plays center field, like things like that. So I think if you could develop like a faster paced, like soccer has futsal, I think is what it's called, where it's really fast paced and one thing to the next. If you could do something like that, I think you'd have a lot of success. Like I think you'd have kids that just kind of buy into it and they love playing it. So that's probably why they love playing in the backyard. Like our boys like playing in the backyard because one kid hits and the other one hits and then the other one hits. And so it's just one after the other so fast.
At that age, everybody wants to hit.
Exactly.
Like everybody wants to hit until they get hit by the ball.
Yeah.
Or the whole deal.
Or play catcher because that's what Will's like. I think I want to be the catcher because they can put on all the stuff. And,
that's
so
cool.
It's
Fun. Love it now. When you get older, you're gonna be like, oh my
all those
God,
bullpens.
so hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give kind of on the recruiting side for kids who want to get, recruited? What just a kid's coming in as a freshman and it's like, hey, if you want to go play at the next level, here's what I would tell you.
Yeah, so we talk about building your resume. Like you're building an athletic resume and each kid is different. So I think I always tell guys, like I even tell them like during an event, if you're not like, you may have signed up to pitch today. If you're prepared to pitch. If you're not prepared to pitch and you're not going to show your best today, like communicate that with me here in the next hour and a half and we'll get it figured out on the back end. But I think no matter what you're doing, like you want to present your best, to have it on video, to have it, checked by numbers and get metrics on those things. And then you're trying to just show steady development and steady growth. And so I think that's one thing that makes it a lot easier for me to, like, the more I see a kid in game and take notes on velo, but even just like breaking ball velo, where it's like, man, how much intent is there with that pitch? And as it begins to spike, it's like I can kind of figure out like, okay, well, this is maybe developing into a real pitch. And you can kind of forecast a little bit more or anticipate a little bit more about what it might become in the future. So it's, as guys develop, I think it's always their plans are a little bit different. So like basketball players, like it may not make a ton of sense to come to a preseason event because you've been playing basketball like crazy. It may make a lot more sense to be there in the summer, or maybe in the fall because you're not gonna to quit your throwing program until maybe November and to be shut down for a couple months. So no matter what it is, I think it's individual, but I think that's kind of the goal is kind of start to build that resume, and then communicate. So you're communicating with me, you're communicating with schools. I'm always open to having that conversation, especially in my opinion with juniors and seniors, probably a little bit more often. But even like freshmen and sophomores of like, hey, this is the dream. Like this is, what we want. Like what steps can we possibly take to maybe make this reality? And again, I'll be super honest, like, about what my views are and what my evaluation kind of looks like. But I think ultimately like trying to serve and trying to help in any way possible. So, but I think that's kind of the big thing is just like trying to put that resume together, making sure that you're ready to present your best at that time, and then just communicate kind of what your goals are and what that might look like.
Is that something you think moves the needle, like as far as like, and it probably depends on the school and the coach, but like kids reaching out to specific schools?
Oh yeah.
You know, or is it more through kind of recruiting stuff, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think especially within the region. So like I have a bunch of relationships here in Oklahoma, good amount in Texas, Kansas, Missouri. And so I think a lot of times like kids will reach out to schools and I'll get a phone call pretty quickly of, hey, like, what do you know about this guy? Like, what can you tell me? Or like they'll get on their profile, like on our site, and they'll see like, hey, they were at an event. Like, what do you remember? Like, what can you tell me? So I absolutely think it's important for them to reach out to schools. Like, I think that's more important, to be honest. And then not the generic copy and paste necessarily, but hey, like, I know, like, I see you've been the head coach for 3 years and guys continue to get better. Like, the record improves. Like, I want to be a part of that. Like, that's something I'm interested in. And then, I mean, you could go down a lot of rabbit holes. Like, if it's a kid that really runs a lot, like, look up how many stolen bases that school has. Like, do they really like to run? Do you really fit into that program? If you do, then communicate that. Like, hey, I love putting pressure on people. I love to run. I know that's your style. Like, I would love to get in front of you. And maybe that's going to camp, but putting that nugget in their head of just communication. Because, again, like I said, then I have no issue reaching out and communicating as well and trying to help in any way that I can.
I think that's something that RC has done a really good job of. Is he has relationships developed with some college staffs. And so when he calls and kind of talks about these kids, like, they listen, they kind of have that relationship and everything with them. And it looks differently in each sport, I feel like. You know, I was talking about golf coaches. I mean, all their recruiting is going to be, you know, in the summertime as far as the different events that they go through throughout the state. But it's I always want to kind of get that feedback on recruiting. Like, you know, is that something that high school coaches should be reaching out, kids should be reaching out, or does that just get annoying to coaches? Like, man, I've got hundreds of kids contacting me and trying to sift through that while trying to develop my own team and all that. So,
I mean, I always think it's super important when a high school coach reaches out, because it's just, you know, they're around them every day. Like, they know how they treat their math teacher. They know how they treat their mom. To be honest with you, like, that was always something that we really tried to pay attention to, is things like that. So I think, man, it's huge. I think it's huge.
Well, Bret, is there any other points that you want to make that we haven't hit on yet?
I don't think so. I appreciate it. I think it's really tough as a parent, just because like I said, like, you want it so bad for your kid to be successful. And I just think it's obviously important to, what does that success look like? Like, defining it's the competitive juice and wanting to win and lose is obviously important, but it's not the most important necessarily. So, but no, I appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks, Bret. Well, remember to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, hit us up on theathleticsoffice@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.